So as always, how do you think your lesson went?
It went pretty well. I felt like some of these standards were a little tricky to exemplify, but for the most
Yeah.
part,
So we'll just talk about the the criteria that he wants. But overall, I thought your lesson was well. Like you had more visuals. You touched on other points from other previous weeks, which I think is good because you're learning from previous weeks and adding to your other lessons and improving, which is always good. But in terms of the um, standard seven criteria. So the first one was creating learning experiences. So I thought it was really smart of you to create it back to life um, examples because there's always like a kid learns better if you can connect it to what they understand already. So if they can connect it to a point rather than memorize something, they always understand it. And that also goes back to last week when you're learning for just learning or for learning when like do you actually know what you learned or did you just learn it to get a good mark on a test or something like that. So I thought that was really smart how you connected it to real life. You had great visuals to make it more fun and practical for the students. Obviously, I'm a big advocate for like play lessons, and it doesn't necessarily have to be reading from a book or anything like that. As much fun as you can do, and you add learning games to it, which is really good. In terms of the sequence of learning, there was a clear structure of your lesson. So you followed your lesson plan, like you started with the basics, and then you had them write down things for references. Then you discussed the topics to deepen their knowledge, and then you moved on to the bigger idea, and then you gave practice, and then review, and then again, like we know next week they'll do their let's review. So it's just a structure of lesson, which is really good. You want to always follow a structure, but I thought that your structure was very smart in the sense that it could flow as a lesson. Like it wasn't like, all right, let's do this. All right, time's up. Let's do this. All right, time's up. Let's do this. Like it was like you just let it flow naturally, which is always what you want to do because again, plans can always change in the drop of a hat. Um, so for all right, in terms of using assessment to plan instruction, I thought you were really smart and you adapted, like we talked about in the other lesson, how you saw the students were understanding the material very quickly. So you're like, all right, we can move on. You don't have to just keep teaching to waste time, which I thought was
yeah.
really smart because you recognized that and moved on. And well, it could be the opposite. Maybe they need more time on something, and then you could take out something.
Like that lesson plan last week where we went over the let's review and found out the kids did not understand the subject verb agreement at all.
Exactly.
So we had to spend a long time on it.
Yeah, in terms of the evidence-based instruction, you were practicing a new skill. You always check for your understanding. And again, we have like the let's review. And you also had the students work in the teams during the game to earn points. So you could, and again, just always be taking anecdotal notes during those things, so just observations. Adjustments to the lesson, as we already said, like you adapted within the lesson because you saw that the kids weren't, or were getting it, understanding it very quickly, and then you moved on, as opposed to the other last week when you realized you had to go back. So it can work both ways, and yeah, I thought it was a great lesson. It flowed well. You understood exactly what needed to be done, and what I thought was good is that you're observing the kids, which is sometimes what teachers forget. They just have a plan and then they like to go through it, where you're observing and able to adjust. So just always remember that, like, you hope your lesson plan always works, but a lot of times it doesn't.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, it's funny, like, when you do the 3 groups for LA, like I have some kids that always go above and beyond what I plan, and then like another group that barely ever makes it to like the halfway mark of my lessons.
And also the interesting thing is because you teach the same lesson for the different LA groups, right? It's like, oh, this worked for this class, but then it's like a whole new experience with another class,
Exactly.
which is also really cool. Do you have any questions or concerns or anything?
Not really.
All right, good job.
Cool.
Remember, there are 5.
Thanks, Nani.
No worries.